Hi, I'm Fabio Biondi, and together with Giorgio Boa, today I will show you how to use Module Federation to create a simple micro-frontend architecture in Angular 19 and deploy everything on Zephyr Cloud. Our goal is the creation of two Angular applications, which we call host and remote. The host application acts as a container, and the remote application will be loaded into host. Both applications are built in Angular, but the same concept can work with React applications or any other framework or front-end library. We start creating two Angular projects using Vite. We then configure both Git repositories. After, we set up a micro-frontend application using Module Federation. We'll then test the application locally in dev mode and the builds. So we are ready to deploy the micro-frontend on Zephyr Cloud in few simple steps. Since we'll use the Module Federation plugin for Vite.js to create this micro-frontend, we needed to create our Angular project using Vite. And to do that, we can use a command line tool provided by Zephyr. Then we start with Create Zephyr Apps and create the first host application. We assign the application name Angular Host. We can choose between Web and React Native. In this case, we select Web. And finally, we can select the template, in this scenario, Angular App with Vite. The first application has done, so we needed to use npm install and set up a GitHub repository, but we'll do them later. Let's now create the second application, Angular Remote, and repeat the same steps. So we have two Angular applications, and we can open the folder in our favorite editor, in my case, WebStorm. We open two terminals and we go to the Angular Host and Angular Remote folders. Now we can install all the dependencies using npm install. And we do the same with the host application. Just wait a few seconds and we are done. These projects use Vite. If we open Vite configuration file, we see two plugins. The first one is the Angular Vite plugin provided by Analog.js. The second one is with Zephyr that will be used to automate the deployment. We have written some articles about Zephyr Cloud and you can find them on our website Learn by Doing. So if you want to read an introduction to Zephyr Cloud and the deployment of static application, just visit our blog. Anyway, these projects are simple Angular standalone application. Opening main.ts, we can see that the app component is used to bootstrap the application, and its template contains some static text and a simple template with a dynamic counter. To distinguish the two projects, we are currently identical, we insert the host text in the title, and we are going to do the same in the remote project. If we now start the host project with npm run dev, we'll get an error. This error is generated by the with Zephyr plugin that requires the project to be versioned on Git. So let's go to GitHub and create a new Angular host project. Okay, we can go back to the terminal, we initialize a new Git project, add stuff, create a commit, add the remote and push. We go back to Git, refresh the page and see that the project is versioned. Now we repeat the same steps for the remote project. We create a new repo, copy the remote instruction, and we open the remote folder in the terminal, creating a push in the first commit. Okay, it looks good. Both projects are now on GitHub. If we now try to start the remote project with npm run dev, the project will compile correctly, and we can see a preview on localhost. Before configuring our micro-frontend, we open the package.json and update all the dependencies from Angular 18 to 19, currently the latest version of the framework. We do this step on both host and remote application, updating all the dependencies with npm install. We open the package.json of the remote project, and we make sure that it's always started on the specific port 5174, both in dev mode and the build. This is very important since in the host application we have to specify which is the URL of the remote application we want to load, and we do the same on host using another port. We also change the name of the project in package.json to distinguish them. This name is used in the Zephyr dashboard to easily identify the project after the deployment. Okay, we are ready to configure our Module Federation plugin in both applications.
Hi folks, I'm Giorgio Boa. I'm Senior Software Engineer and Open Source Developer. I'm the author of Module Federation Vite and today I will show you how you can use it for your application. Let's start it. Now we can configure both Angular projects to enable the MicroFrontEnd architecture. Let's start with the remote application that will be loaded into the host. First, we need to install the plugin from npm module federation vite, and we will do the same on the host. Then we open the file vite.config on the remote application and configure the plugin module federation. Basically, a plugin in Vite is a function, and we need to import the federation function from the module federation Vite package that we already downloaded a few seconds ago. So now, instead of function, we need to pass an object. We can pass a file name. This is the file name that the project and the architecture will use to figure out a little bit the configuration. We need to pass a name, the name of the remote, so the consumer, the application that will use the MicroFrontEnd remote, need to specify remote, and in this case we are exposing a component, the app.component. We are giving a name remote-app. So the consumer need to use this special name remote/remote-app to load our MicroFrontEnd. Then we don't need to specify any remote right now because we are in the remote side. And then really important things, we need to specify shared. So shared is an array in this case, and we can specify the name of the packages we would like to share across the MicroFrontends. So in this case we are sharing Angular/core, but we can also specify a specific version if you would like to have a singleton or not. We can go really deep in this kind of configuration to verify and also use only one library rather than every application use their own package. Finally, we need to specify build. This is a Vite configuration, and we need to specify the target. So Chrome 89, in this case, it's really important to use this kind of target because under the hood we are using async await syntax. So if you need to support build target lower than Chrome 89, you can use the Vite plugin top level await. You need to download it and replace this build object with the plugin I mentioned before. So now we can run the application with npm run dev. That run on the port 5174. Don't kill this process since it will be loaded from the host application. In fact, the host will load the remote, and the server of course need to be up and running. So now we can configure the module federation in the host application, which, as I mentioned, it will have to load the remote application. Let's open the Vite config on the host application. Here we need to import the federation function straight from module federation Vite, as we did in the remote one. We have to specify the name, in this case it's host. We need to specify the remotes, so the application that we would like to consume. So in this case we are defining a remote of type module because it's an ESM module. The name is remote, and we need to specify the entry, so the full URL with the remote entry.js file we mentioned before. So here remote entry.js, entry global name is remote, and also shared scope, it's a kind of a special scope if you would like to share things in a different way than the normal one. Here we can expose things, and we will see later this specific property. And then we have the file name, and it's the default one, remote entry. And then, as we mentioned before, in the remote, we are sharing Angular/core, so let's define it. Also, in this kind of a configuration in the host, we need to specify a build target Chrome 89. So now let's jump back to the expose property. We need to specify remote app also in the host, and we are exposing app.component. In this version of Module Federation, under the hood, it's working with both remote and host with the exposes property with some value in it. So now we can start the host project with the npm run dev, and we can see the preview on port 5173. So now we have in one tab host application and in the other tab remote application.
Okay, now the configuration of the MicroFrontEnd is done. Now we want to load the remote application into host. Open the component in which we want to load the remote application. In our example, we use app component and we insert a div element that acts as a placeholder to define the right location where we want to display the remote application. We assign a template reference variable to identify this element and get its reference through the use of the viewChild function. The effect will be automatically invoked when the viewChild is populated and the viewContainer property is available, so we can now use async await to import the remote application using the remote app alias. This name is what we use in the vit configuration file of the remote application. Thanks to the read viewContainer ref option, we can use the create component function, useful to create component instances at runtime inside an HTML element. Then, inside our div element, we load the app root component of the remote application. Okay, we have finished all the configuration, but first let's make sure that the remote app application is recognized by TypeScript, and we can simply do that opening the vitenv definition types and declare our module. Okay, fixed, and we are done. We open the host application and now we see that it's also contained the remote application. Okay, it works in dev mode, but let's see if the build works too. Let's start with the host application. We use npm run build and then npm run preview. We do the same in remote. We have to kill the current process, create the build and then preview. We see that everything works exactly as before. So we are ready for the deployment, which has already been done when we used npm run build thanks to the with Zephyr plugin that was automatically configured when we created the project from the CLI. Even if in this video we don't show you this step, the first time you will make a build, you will be asked to sign in into Zephyr Cloud, and you will then have the possibility to create an account if you don't already have one. In fact, the with Zephyr plugin automatically deploys application by assigning an URL to the application after each build. Now we can click the link in the terminal of the remote application and we'll see that our application is online on Zephyr Cloud. Now we want to load this remote application into host. Let's come back to the vit configuration file and we change the remote URL from localhost to the new Zephyr link. We then build a new version of the host application and Zephyr assign a new URL again, where we can now see both applications that works together. As you can see, using Zephyr Cloud, the deployment is very simple and fully automated. However, Zephyr assigns a new URL every time we run a new build, but of course we can configure Zephyr to assign a custom domain. You can find an article on this topic on Learn by Doing a blog. We can go to the Zephyr dashboard now and we find our project. Opening a project, we also find several pages of analytics, the possibility to configure custom domain, and much more, including also the history of versions. Here we can open our deployment previews, roll back to an early version, and much more. Okay, that's all. I hope you enjoyed this video, and for more information I recommend to visit the Zephyr Cloud website, a platform that really simplifies the deployment of static applications, MicroFrontEnd and much more.